Welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about what it is to be a Gold Star family member and just kind of where I'm at with that, with all the, I'll say the conversations about the national anthem. It's not the national anthem protest, but the protest involving the national anthem, and just speak for myself. And that's the first thing I'm going to point out, is that I'm not speaking for other Gold Star family members. I'm not speaking for the rest of my own family. I'm just talking on behalf of my own pain and my own stance with it and how I feel. And so that's the thing, is that, if there are other Gold Star family members who don't feel the same way as me, I hold nothing against them, and nor should anybody else. I do think it's important for people to realize that as individuals, I do think it is on our own judgment and our own pain that we can decide how we feel about a stance. So just to elaborate to people who don't know what Gold Star family members are, to be a Gold Star family member, you have to have a immediate family member be killed in action. And again, to the nature of that pain, just kind of open the eyes of what that is, to not simply have a family member who's passed away or died in an accident or such. And any loss of a loved one is immensely painful. So it's not to diminish that, more distinguish the difference between other people losing loved ones and other people in the military losing loved ones, and specifically losing your loved one in action. Because that was one of the things that, for myself, losing my twin brother in action, was immensely painful. And the really, one of the very difficult things about that was the fact that, unlike, I would say, our noble routines in life, unlike, just life itself, when my brother was in the Marine Corps, but here in country, either at School of Infantry or Recon School or whatever, when he was stationed at a base, it was very, very different than the true fear of when he was at war. Because the truth is once he was deployed, and I want to say he was overseas for 5 or 6 months, it may have been a little longer, but for every single day he was there, that was a true and genuine concern for me and my family, was that any day we knew we could get that call, we could have the Marines at our door, bringing us that news that he had been killed. And so that was the thing that's very different with losing a loved one in war, is that you have a genuine fear every day to receive that news. And again, what the sad truth was every day that came and went and we didn't receive that news, while that was appreciated for that day, the reality was the next day was coming, and that was another day we had to get through and just hope and pray that we didn't get that news. And so for months and months and months of warning every single day that we were going to get that news, and then the final day came. That's just something immensely difficult to deal with, to know that your loved one could legitimately get killed every single day, and then to actually have that day come. It's very tough not having that pain bring you down for eternity. And I know that it's a pain that I'm going to have with me for the rest of my life. And so being a Gold Star family member is a sad, alienating, lonely pain, because there's so few people in this country that experience that, and I'm happy that that's a pain that not a lot of people share. But the tough thing about that is that one thing I've realized with pain specifically, just observing life, observing society, and observing how society as a whole supports or doesn't support, or at least actively supports pain. One thing you can see is that the less frequent it is, the less people it affects, more often than not, the less true attention and action is taken to support it. And that was one thing that, out of my curiosity, I looked up, just because I knew, the amount of people, the amount of troops killed in the Iraq and Afghanistan war was pretty minuscule in comparison to the past wars we had fought in. And so to just kind of bring a scale of why I think that Gold Star families like myself are forgotten in many ways, is because simply just the amount of people that it would directly affect, and the amount of people that that are actively walking society with that pain. And so a little while back, I looked at the numbers, and in World War II, we had roughly 500,000 troops killed. And again, you look at the average size of families along with the size of this country. The country was roughly half the size it is today, and yet we and yet we lost 500,000 troops. And then again, too, the average family size was much bigger back then. And so I looked at it, and percentagely, roughly 11% of the country directly lost a loved one in war. And then again, you go to the extended family of aunts and uncles and cousins and grandparents and so forth, and a huge percent of this country lost someone in World War II. Whereas when you fast forward to Afghanistan and the Iraqi war, with two wars that lasted significantly longer than World War II, again because of the size of the country, along with the low percentage of casualties in comparison. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think it was like 0.03 or 0.003% are affected directly in our Gold Star family members in this country, which again is just so, we get recognized on Memorial Day and we get recognized on Veterans Day, but for the grand scale of things, we're a forgotten demographic of pain in this country. And again, I'm not saying that as a means to try to say, look at me. It's just a matter of perspective, of realizing why are we forgotten. And I think that that's just the nature, is that when there's so much pain in the world as there is, it's very easy to overlook and again be blinded by our own pain. But that being said, that was one thing that looking through all this dialogue with the national anthem and with Black Lives Matter and with all people being on both sides, where I've seen a lot of and that was one of the things that compelled me to make this video. Was I've seen some people stand up for families like myself and for the troops as a whole, and while I do appreciate the nature of that, I do think one thing I will, call out and denounce is, one, I don't think that any of these players should be called names. That's something I do not support. I do not support anybody being called a hateful or judgmental name because of what they're doing, because I won't look past what they're trying to accomplish. Whether or not I feel respect or disrespect, that's something that I won't disrespect another person, even if I do feel disrespect, because that wasn't the intent by any means. And then secondly, I'm going to call out some of the, I was watching this debate, and this was back when the national anthem, quote unquote, protest first started with Kaepernick, was that there was a guy on, I can't remember if it was on CNN or on Fox, but he was debating with another person on the opposition of the argument, and he was comparing kneeling during the national anthem as cracking open a beer during a church service. And again, just a horrible, disgusting representation of what's trying to be accomplished. It's one thing if, like I said, the internal, specifically with Gold Star family members, with veteran families and so forth, they are allowed to feel disrespect. That is not something you can tell them how they can feel about their pain. That being said, I think it was extremely disrespectful to compare trying to bring attention to social injustice, debatably at the wrong time, but they weren't trying to refresh their thirst with an alcoholic beverage as a means of, it just seems like it's a very disrespectful way to talk about the cause in and of itself. And then again, thirdly, I'll point out that I saw a picture of a gentleman who was wearing a T-shirt that said "I stand for the flag," and while he was wearing the shirt that said "I stand for the flag," he was currently sitting on an American flag as if it was a beach towel. So again, there's I think a lot lost trying to bring attention to this conversation, and I think it's really important for people to be humble about where they are in the conversation. I think if someone knows somebody who's been a vet or so forth, obviously they're gonna have emotions, they're gonna have feelings about it, but that's not the same thing as being an actual vet or being a family member of a vet. And again, too, with somebody who's a Gold Star family member like myself, being very related to the pain and the fear and the risk and the sacrifice that these troops make. I'm not in the same category of experience, in the same category of true emotion to this subject. But that being said, that was one thing that I thought about recently. Was I thought about the sacrifice my brother did commit willingly, he willingly, and again, true, my twin brother was the bravest and greatest man I've ever known. And I don't say that lightly. I've met a lot of great people, and I've observed a lot of great people in this world. But my twin brother arguably was the greatest man I've ever met and will ever meet. And the reason that I say that is because he willingly joined the Marine Corps during a time of war. He knew what he was getting into. It wasn't just a matter of liking the uniform or liking the idea of sacrificing himself. He willingly made that choice before he had to risk anything. And so, again, that was one thing that, looking back, there was a picture of my twin brother 5 days before he was killed. It was very difficult for me to look at this picture because knowing him, being his twin, being able to, like I say, see through his eyes, I just remember him. He was looking off into the distance when he was in Iraq, and I think it was around sunset. And I just remember looking in his eyes and knowing what was happening, coming 5 days later. I think he knew it. I don't know if he knew the exact day, but I think that he left here thinking he was coming back, just with all the conversations we had. But I just remember looking at that picture, and I just remember having conversations with him before he was killed. And I think that he was, I just looking at that picture, I see him looking into the distance. And I kind of felt like he was looking back home and realizing that he wasn't coming home. And that was something that he willingly did day after day after day when he was there. And just that level of sacrifice, that level of selflessness that I do my best to try to exhibit. I do my best to try to practice that. And that's, again, one of the reasons that I started this channel was that, just talking about my pain is something that's been terrifying for me. And then trying to do it on a public scale is that much more terrifying, because I was terrified about being judged by people that knew me and people that were close to me. Just the fear of being judged by someone who doesn't know me. I mean, those are the people that usually judge the most harshly because they don't know why you're speaking, or they question your integrity. And so that's one thing I realized was that, in spite of my fear, I want to walk towards that danger so that other people don't have to. I want to walk towards being judged, to give encouragement and encourage the people so that they can make that same choice for themselves, so they can bring a voice to their pain in spite of the fear of being judged. And so that was one thing I thought about with my brother's sacrifice, was, again, I speak for myself alone, but I want to sacrifice my pain for the pain of others. I want to sacrifice how I feel, and whether respected or disrespected with the kneeling during the national anthem, and say that I wholeheartedly support this cause for bringing attention to social injustice, because that was the same sacrifice that my brother made for this country, so that we could talk about this, so we could talk about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all people. And again, it was just one of those things where I'm only talking on behalf of myself. I completely stand by the Gold Star family members who don't feel compelled to say that or feel that, because I know how deep that pain is and how real it is, and how no one can tell a Gold Star family member how to feel about their pain. But that being said, like I said, I really want to try to do my part to help this country heal, and if it means me sacrificing attention and respect, towards family, towards myself. And again, this is just something that I feel compelled to do through my twin brother's sacrifice. And I hope that it's something where, like I said, I will stand by NFL players and such that want to take a knee. Not necessarily because I agree with the exact timing of it. I do think that there are certain ways that we could adjust that, but that's not my point. My point is to do what I can do to help and sacrifice myself so that others don't have to go through that same pain of being forgotten. But as always, good luck and good night.